Hi everyone, I'm Kaushik Sen, VP of Marketing here at UpGuard. Myself and the whole UpGuard team are so excited to have you here today at our first ever summit event. I'm so happy we can connect virtually today, and we are really looking forward to being able to have in-person gatherings soon. During these times, we all need to stay connected, share ideas, and have important conversations while staying safe. While it's fantastic that many of us can work from home, it means that we're increasingly relying on technology to stay connected. We're all creating more data than ever before, so it's not just important to protect your own data, but your vendors and your customers as well. Today, Dan Bradbury, our Chief Product Officer, will give you a breakdown of our latest product release and a preview of what's coming next quarter. You'll hear firsthand from Greg Pollock, our VP of Cyber Research, on an exciting study that we've done in the Australian market, focused on the security performance of Australia's top 200 companies. And finally, you'll hear directly from our customers on how they use UpGuard every single day. We hope you enjoy today's event. If you have any questions along the way, feel free to use the Q&A panel in the webinar. And finally, you'll receive a short survey after the event. As we strive to make things better, we'd love to hear your feedback. So let's get this started.
Hi, I'm Dan Bradbury, and it's great to be talking to you today. I've been the Chief Product Officer here at UpGuard for nearly 4 years. Before that, I spent a long time working in the financial services industry, where I had a lot of exposure to the importance and challenge of protecting customer data. Today, I'll run through some of the ways our platform can help protect your data. I'll cover a few of our latest features and tell you about some exciting things we're working on. About 4 years ago, we realised we had an opportunity to help companies manage their cyber risk. Cast your mind back. The amount of data in the world was well and truly exploding. I'm sure many of you have heard the stat that 90% of the world's data has been created in the last 2 years. So we're seeing a massive increase in data. At the same time, outsourcing and cloud computing are on the rise, which means this data is being distributed all over the internet. To get a sense of the scale of this, Okta now estimates that on average, companies have around 190 SaaS providers. So the vendor landscape is becoming more complex. As a result of this, not surprisingly, data breaches are becoming more common. Back in 2015, almost half of all businesses experienced a security incident. The thing that's become clearer since is that data is often not leaked by you, but by someone in your supply chain, one of your vendors. Up to 60% of data breaches today involve a third party. So companies started rightly taking a greater interest in the security of their vendors. But this was not easy. Vendor assessments were manual and slow to conduct. They were buried in spreadsheets, attached to emails. For a lot of companies, vendors were maybe assessed when they were onboarded and rarely reassessed. Even fewer had any kind of continuous monitoring in place. There were a few solutions emerging to help manage this process, but most were too expensive to use across an entire vendor portfolio. Plus, you kind of had to choose between a security rating solution or something to manage questionnaires, or maybe you had to buy both. And finally, cybersecurity software didn't exactly have a reputation of being easy to use, so we knew we could do better. Fast forward to 2020 and UpGuard is protecting the data of some of the biggest and best companies in the world. We've created a platform that is now scanning everything all the time. For you, this means that when you want to monitor a new vendor, you don't need to wait for us. We're monitoring nearly 10 million companies already, so chances are we know about your vendors. And if not, we can monitor new companies instantly. We identify risks from multiple sources and provide you with a consolidated view. We were the first to incorporate automated scanning alongside security questionnaires. We make it affordable for you to have unlimited users monitoring unlimited vendors and have many customers now monitoring thousands of vendors. Our platform is backed by a world-class security research team. They have a track record of finding data breaches, some of which you've probably read about in the media, and we leverage this expertise to continually improve the product. And finally, our platform is super easy to use. I'd encourage you to check out our Gartner reviews to see what our customers are saying about this. Our platform is getting better all the time. It's been in the market for nearly 3 years, and in that time we've done hundreds of releases and added hundreds of new features. In Q2 alone, we released over 30 new features, and we're not slowing down. There's not enough time to cover everything today, but if you check out the release notes on our support site, you can see everything in one place, and it'll give you a sense of just how quickly we're moving. So today, I'm going to focus on 3 specific challenges our customers have faced and the features we've launched to address these. One of the challenges our customers have faced is how to capture the results of vendor risk assessments within the platform. UpGuard makes it really easy to surface risk information about your vendors through our automated scanning and security questionnaires. We also help you work with your vendors to remediate risks. One of the things our customers have been asking for is a way to document their analysis of these risks, as well as any specific recommendations. For instance, many of our users work in InfoSec teams within large companies. They get asked to assess vendors by people working in other parts of the company, maybe a project team looking to implement a new technology. The InfoSec team needs to review the security posture of this vendor and then provide a recommendation back to the project team. Until recently, we haven't provided an easy way to do this. Our new risk assessments feature makes it easy to capture and share your analysis of vendor risks. This provides a record based on a point in time that shows the evidence you've reviewed and the conclusions and recommendations you've made. You select the evidence you'll be reviewing. Maybe you sent a security questionnaire. Maybe you reviewed the risks identified through automated scanning. We take a snapshot of this evidence, so as the vendor's risk profile changes over time, you can still see exactly what it looked like when you conducted your review. You then capture your analysis, which risks you're concerned about and why, as well as specific recommendations based on this. You can share this assessment with your stakeholders by inviting them into the platform or sending them a PDF. And you can easily track which vendors have been assessed and when. This helps you manage an ongoing program of periodic assessment. By capturing risk assessments in UpGuard, you get a record for yourself and any other stakeholders interested in how you manage vendor risk. Think internal and external audit, your customers, and increasingly regulators like the SEC in the US or APRA in Australia. The next challenge we address for our customers is how to quickly identify which vendors are exposed to particular risks. So imagine your boss has just read about a new vulnerability that impacts a database. Say it's MongoDB. They come to you and want to know which of your vendors are exposed to this. Until now, UpGuard has made it easy to look at a vendor and see all of their risks, but it's been trickier to look at a risk and see all of the vendors impacted by it. Our new portfolio risk profile makes it simple and fast to see all the vendors exposed to particular risks. It shows all the risks your vendors are exposed to in one place and lets you drill down into individual risks to see which vendors are exposed. To let you hone in further, you can filter this in multiple ways. For instance, show all the vendors labelled as Tier 1 with this risk, or show all the dangerous services these Tier 1 vendors are exposing to the internet. We've made it as flexible as we can to help you answer whatever questions you get asked. And of course, you can export the results, including any filters you've applied, and easily share them. The third challenge our customers have shared with us is that they are spending too much time responding to questionnaires. Our customers are telling us they are increasingly being assessed themselves. If this is happening to you, you'll know how time-consuming it can be. You get emailed an Excel spreadsheet, often containing hundreds of questions, and get asked to fill it in and email it back. But the questions are basically the same as the ones you've answered 10 times before. So you start digging through your sent folder for your previous responses, and you copy and paste the answers. Just like we've helped improve the way you assess your vendors, you now want a better way to respond when you get assessed. Our shared profile feature lets you proactively publish security-related info, share it with your customers instead of completing questionnaires. The info you share can include any of the questionnaires available within the UpGuard platform, as well as audit reports and any other security documents. When a customer asks to assess you, just point them to your shared profile. You can provide access to anyone. They don't need to be UpGuard customers. And you can control how long they have access for. You also get a log of who's looked at it and when. If you've ever completed a questionnaire within UpGuard, you can easily convert this to a shared profile, and we're happy to help you do this. For new customers, we even offer a free assessment now when you sign up. You answer a questionnaire and we review your response and identify any risks. We then help you convert this response to a shared profile. As it's becoming more common to be both conducting and responding to assessments, we are all motivated to move away from this reliance on bespoke questionnaires. It saves time for everyone. So I've talked through 3 of the features we released in Q2 and want to finish by talking about some of the things we're working on now, which will be released this quarter. One of the areas we're continuing to improve is our reporting. We've worked hard to make sure you can get data out of the platform easily via our API into Excel or as PDFs for sharing. Our customers use this a lot. And one of the things we've been hearing is that you want a vendor report you can share with people who don't normally access the UpGuard platform. The report needs to have more context, like a description of our methodology, and the risks need to be explained in plain English. So we're working on an all-new vendor report. You'll be able to choose what data you include, risks identified through our automated scanning or questionnaires. If you've conducted a risk assessment, you'll be able to include this as well. It'll make sense to people that have never seen our platform and who might not be InfoSec professionals. The second feature I want to tell you about is what we call additional evidence. Say you need to assess a tech company like Atlassian. They're a big company and you might not even have a contact to send a questionnaire to. If you do have a contact and you send them a questionnaire, it may be difficult to get them to respond. They'll direct you to their website where they publish a lot of security-related information, including audit reports and various security questionnaires they've completed. So how can you incorporate this into your assessment? The new additional evidence feature will let you import security-related documentation into the platform. You'll be able to capture any risks you identify, incorporate these into the vendor's risk profile, and use it as evidence when you conduct a risk assessment. One of our customers recently told us that if they are assessing a vendor that has a current SOC 2 report, and if this report covers the scope of the relationship they have with the vendor, they're happy to use that as the basis of their assessment and not go through the process of sending a questionnaire. Our new additional evidence feature lets them complete their assessment without sending a questionnaire. They can focus their time on the vendors that pose the greater risk to them. And the final new feature I want to talk about is our enhanced vulnerabilities module. This is one of the most widely used features in our platform, and we're making a number of improvements to it. We detect vulnerabilities based on software version information that websites expose. So if a website exposes a header telling us the version of WordPress they're running, we'll identify any vulnerabilities associated with that version. But here's where it gets tricky. Sometimes we're able to verify that the website is definitely exposed to that vulnerability, whereas other times we only know the site may be vulnerable. Right now, our platform doesn't differentiate between these verified and potential vulnerabilities. If you've ever asked a vendor or someone in your own company to fix a vulnerability only to be told it doesn't actually exist, you'll know this is frustrating and embarrassing. So we're going to start telling you whether the vulnerabilities we identify are verified or just potential vulnerabilities. If you confirm that a potential vulnerability does not actually exist, you'll be able to dismiss it. And there's more we're doing. For instance, vulnerabilities will be better integrated into the risk profile, so they appear just like all the other risks, and you'll be able to request remediation for individual vulnerabilities. We know this is an area many of you are focused on, and we're looking forward to helping you even more. Some of you would have seen that we work very closely with our customers, including providing early access to new features. If you're interested in participating in our beta program to get early access to these features or any others we work on in the future, please let us know. So to finish up, we're in an industry that continues to change quickly. New threats emerge, data is becoming more distributed, supply chains more complex, and regulatory requirements are increasing. Hopefully you've got a sense of how our platform has evolved and why we feel we're uniquely placed to help protect your data. We're constantly adding to and improving the platform. I've talked through a few of the newer additions, risk assessments, portfolio risk profile, and shared profiles, as well as some of the things we're working on right now, vendor reporting, additional evidence, and vulnerabilities. There's a lot more in the pipeline, and we'll keep working closely with our customers to build out the platform. It's been a pleasure to talk to you today. Thanks for listening, and please reach out with any questions.
Thanks, Dan. We're all excited to hear what's coming from our product team. To our customers, everything you just heard from Dan is available in your account right now. Today, we're also announcing the launch of the 2020 study on the ASX 200, where we've analysed the top 200 companies in Australia for data leaks. I must say, the results are fascinating. You can download the report and read it for yourself at upguard.com/ASX200. And next up, we've got Greg Pollock, our VP of Cyber Research, who's going to take you through some of the highlights in the study. Over to you, Greg.
Hi, I'm Greg Pollock, VP of Product for Cyber Research at UpGuard. For years, our team has worked to show how pervasive and dangerous cyber risk is by highlighting cases of data leaks, that is, sensitive information left publicly available on the internet. We've worked on cases involving data from organizations like the NSA, as well as the internal surveillance systems used by the Russian Federation. We found personal information for every registered US voter, and we found the internal software that was part of the Cambridge Analytica case. Today, the stakes of cyber risk are as high as ever. Major nations are increasingly waging a cyber Cold War, and all of their citizens, universities, infrastructure, and companies are caught in the middle. Now, the good news, such as it is that cyber risk is not some immutable fact of life. It's not part of nature. Cyber risk is something that we can study, we can understand its causes, we can manage it, and ultimately, we can reduce it. Today, I'm going to be talking about the cyber research team's analysis of the ASX 200, that is the 200 most valuable companies traded on the Australian Stock Exchange. Doing so, we're looking at two broad classes of data. First are their data leaks, that is, how much information from inside those companies may be inadvertently exposed to the public internet, as well as their security ratings, that is, an objective assessment of their external internet-facing digital assets. This will help us understand two broad vectors for data breaches. One of those being data accidentally pushed outside of the perimeter of the company, as well as bad actors trying to break into the perimeter of that company. To analyze the risk of data leaks for the ASX 200, we used proprietary software that we've been working on for years. Essentially, we've built a search engine for data leaks. Like other search engines, it goes out and collects data from its target sources, it indexes it, and then presents it to analysts for use. Now, what makes it different from a Google or Bing or another commercial search engine is that we are interested in finding data leaks rather than in helping you find a good restaurant for tonight. So our search engine prioritizes looking at the deep and dark web rather than content on the open web. And in so doing, helps us find things like confidential business documents and system credentials and personal information. Usually when we perform data leak assessments, we use many keywords, keywords being the input to the system, the thing you're searching for. Typically, especially for large companies like these, we would use many keywords, probably 25 to 50. For this study, to keep things even, we used one keyword for each company, that being the sort of most obvious one being their name and primary domain, as a way to search for these companies' information and keep the assessment objective and the same for all of them. In doing so, we found data leaks for about 1/3 of the ASX 200. This is actually a very conservative number, as bad as it may sound. We performed similar research for thousands of companies, and our overall rate is finding leaks for about 60% of companies. Now, that being said, this lower rate for the ASX 200 is most likely due to using far fewer keywords than we usually would, especially for companies of this size. At the same time, any data leakage is cause for concern, and certainly knowing that 1/3 of the most valuable companies in Australia are leaking data or have data currently exposed is something to think about. Additionally, we performed the same analysis in 2019. They were not exactly the same companies. The 200 most valuable companies is, of course, a dynamic list, and so it changes over time. But what we're going to do is look at the ASX 200 over time. And what we found is a slight increase in the number of companies with active data leaks from 2019 to 2020. That's not really to be a surprising finding. Data leaks are largely a function of the amount of data in the world, the number of people processing data, and the amount of digitization of companies. Now, those are trends that are all only going to increase. And so while we would certainly prefer to see this problem being resolved, it's not especially surprising to see a modest increase year over year like this. Now, one of the interesting things we were able to see by performing this 2 years in a row is being able to compare the status of data leaks detected in 2019 to where are they today. And this was a surprise. This was a new learning for us. Of those leaks that we detected in 2019, 75% of those were still available on the internet. What this tells us is that companies are essentially not being aware that data leaks are happening and are not taking action as a result. Now, this sort of corroborates a model we've seen in reviewing these daily for all of our customers and for more companies, is that data leaks are sort of bimodal. Either they're very short-lived in that the person who exposes the data realizes they made a mistake and tries to fix it as quickly as possible, or they're very long-lived. That person does not realize it, and no one ever goes to find out that the data has been exposed. This leads to the second finding related to this, which is that of those data leaks that had been removed, that we had detected in 2019 and which are no longer available today, 75% of those were ones that we, UpGuard researchers, actually disclosed to the company. So again, this corroborates the general theory that companies simply are not aware they're leaking data. And when they are made aware of it, then they take action pretty quickly. This helps us understand, or it may help inform a finding from the Office of the Australian Information Commissioner. They do twice-a-year reports on notifiable data breaches. And they try to break those down as much as they can to the cause of the data breach. Well, for those involving a cyber incident, that is, those involving some kind of hacking, rather than sort of human error, sending an email to the wrong person, for those involving some kind of cyber incident, about 1/3 of those involved credentials where the source of those credentials was not known. What our research may help suggest is that data leaks can close that gap in explaining where are criminals getting all these credentials that they're using for 1/3 of these cyber incidents. So in both 2019 and in 2020, we've compared the companies for which we found data leaks to their market capitalization to help understand, do these correlate with the size of the company or with other factors. For this, there's a pretty clear linear correlation. As companies get larger, they are more likely to have data leaks. That's not to say that all big companies are leaking data. Again, only 1/3 of the ASX 200 have data leaks that we are talking about in this study. But there's a pretty clear correlation that as companies get bigger, they're more likely to have leaks. That's somewhat confounded by other factors that we've also found that correlate with leaks. Having more employees, simply more people handling data, makes it more likely that someone will make a mistake. Having a more digitized business, that is more data itself, makes it more likely that one asset will be misconfigured. Having a larger digital footprint, more websites, more IP addresses, just makes it more likely that each of those has the potential to leak data. And those are all things that are also tend to correlate with market capitalization. When we look at industry, that also gives us some indication of what are the kinds of companies that are likely to have data leaks. And of course, it can also help us understand what risk do those leaks pose based on the kind of information that those companies are handling. So here we see that financial services companies are the ones where we found the most companies with data leaks. Now that should be normalized somewhat by the number of financial services companies on the ASX 200 at all, because there are quite a few of them up there. When we do that, then we still see that 48% of financial services companies had data leaks, which is above the average of 33%, and also quite concerning. It's also something that makes sense with what we've been talking about as far as the causes of data leakage. That is, these are very large companies, they have a very large number of employees, and they're also ones that have digitized very heavily. So the more we digitize, it makes us, we get great things like mobile banking. It also creates an immense number of touch points for all of the systems and the credentials and the supply chain for all of those digital assets. Finally, aside from companies and maybe their contractors leaking data themselves, there's also this whole other pool of data swashing around that we're able to analyze with our search engine. And there are honestly quite a few of these. There are at any given time over 50,000 databases that are directly accessible and require no authentication to access the data inside them. Now, those are the databases that we are looking at because they require no authentication, and so they are, by any legal standard, publicly exposed data. In doing this, we found, and this is something that we see very broadly, an immense number of business email addresses for people working at the ASX 200 in these publicly exposed databases. If you were to put these all together, then we have found about 18,000 unique email addresses just in 2020 for people working at those companies. Now, obviously, this doesn't take into account their personal email addresses, which are also risk factors and which may also have been exposed, but we have no way to correlate this back to the companies. And what we can see here is that there's an immense world of data for people, either maybe they're third parties to those companies, maybe it's a consumer service where the person has signed up with their email, with their business email address. We don't know, but there's an immense world of exposed data linked back to real persons and their business email addresses that's constantly being exposed on the internet. Now, to put this in some perspective, and again to use the numbers from the Office of the Information Commissioner, they found that most notifiable data breaches under their scheme are fairly small. About 80% of the notifiable data breaches affected less than 1,000 people. So if we were to put all of these email addresses into one breach, into one 18,000 person breach, it would be in the 95th percentile of notifiable data breaches that are known to the OAIC, which is, it's pretty significant. These are, of course, being spread out over time, and also something we're not accounting for here are the repeats. These individuals may have been involved in many, many breaches or data exposures during this time period. But again, to try to keep things very conservative in our assessment of the risk, we're only looking at unique email addresses. Thank you for joining me to listen to the cyber research team's report on the ASX 200. And I think if there are two takeaways, I think there are two things I would like to leave you with. One of them is that cyber risk is dynamic. It's changing all the time. And to really understand it, these annual snapshots are enough to make us sit up and pay attention, but we need much more granular data and really frequent analyses of the data to be able to understand cyber risk at any point in time, and then also understand how dynamic it is as a whole. The second is that we can't solve problems if we don't know about them. And this is, I think, really the most important thing to take away about data leaks, is that We have found that when companies are aware of it, they take it very seriously. When they are not made aware of it, and currently what we see is that simply they are not being made aware of it, they take no action. And that risk remains latent and may be used however long down the line, or maybe part of a persistent compromise that remains unknown indefinitely. So our goal will continue to be to research those risks so we can all improve together. And thank you for your time, and I hope to see you again.
Thanks a lot, Greg. We appreciate the insights from you and the whole cyber research team. The biggest thing that I took away from your talk is that 1 in 3 companies in the ASX 200 have an open data leak. We've just emailed a copy of the ASX 200 report to everyone who's joined us for today's event, so look out for that in your inbox. It amazes me how our customers use UpGuard in so many ways, whether it's monitoring their own attack surface or assessing their third-party vendors. From startups to the enterprise, we can scale to meet our customers' needs. Now, let's hear some of these stories directly from our customers.
Thanks for joining us today at UpGuard Summit. Our next guest speaker is Andrew Lawrence, CIO of Superloop. Andrew brings a wealth of experience in the technology industry and will be sharing both insights and practical thoughts around attack surface and third-party risk management. So let's get straight into it. Andrew, firstly, thank you so much for taking the time to be with us today. Could we start by learning a little bit more about your background and your role at Superloop?
Thanks, Aaron, and thank you for the invitation to be here today. I'm really looking forward to getting into some questions and sharing a little bit about how we use the platform and how it's been integrated into our vendor management processes. Yes, as you mentioned, I'm the CIO for Superloop. I've been here for 3 years now. My role at Superloop encompasses all the usual areas you'd expect. I look after all things IT, including desk-side services, so our internal IT teams, our enterprise systems team, who manage and maintain our private and our public cloud infrastructure, which, as you can expect, could be pretty significant, and our information security team, who definitely have their work cut out for them in the cybersecurity space, as they cover the whole of our business, and they're the primary users of the UpGuard platform. But I think they're big fans of the platform. They definitely say it makes their job a lot easier in a few different ways, some unexpected ways as well, but they're big fans.
You've definitely got a load on your plate there, Andrew. And for folks who haven't heard of Superloop, what does the company do? They have an interesting history in Australia. Could you talk a little bit about that?
We do have an interesting history. For those people who don't know much about Superloop, we're an Australian company. We're an international telecoms carrier. We're based out of Brisbane. The company itself is only 5 years old, so it's pretty young. We're an infrastructure provider in the true sense. So it means we do all sorts of things like we dig up the road to put fibre in the ground. We put wireless services up on towers all around the country. And we deploy subsea cable systems that connect countries together. On top of that infrastructure, we design and we build our own data networks as well. So those networks uplink things like the NBN in Australia, other major telcos, and then we carry that data off to places like Amazon and Google and Microsoft and Netflix. And not just in Australia, we do that in Australia, Hong Kong, and Singapore. So, we do all right for a small company. To explain, I guess, a little bit about why people might not have heard of us. Traditionally, we've been the carrier's carrier, if that makes sense. So we provide services to the bigger household names that you're more familiar with. We have grown quickly over sort of 5 years. I like to say sometimes that we're a 5-year-old company with a 20-year history. And that's mainly because we've brought together some really exciting companies over our time. We bring together some really smart and experienced people to do that as well. And they deliver those wholesale services as well as our own sort of residential services and business grade services as well. So we deliver residential NBN, we deliver business to business connectivity through our fixed line and our fixed wireless networks. We have products that deliver guest and in-room Wi-Fi as well for hotels, health sector and education campuses. And we also do student accommodation and hospitals as well. So in the school space, we actually also have a CyberHound brand as well, which is a cybersecurity product. It's very popular. It's an advanced cyber safety solution for schools, which is super effective. It's great for educators. It's great for the parents. And as you can imagine, it's pretty popular with the students as well. So we're pretty well rounded. We do a lot of things, but we do all right for a pretty small company.
Yeah, fantastic. Sounds like you got a lot on your plate. And what are the types of security challenges faced by a company like Superloop?
I guess we have the similar challenges to a lot of companies. I like to say, the 80-20 rule. Most companies have similar challenges. There's obviously some things that are pretty bespoke to a company like ours, but for the most part, we have similar challenges. We are an ASX-listed company, and we're a registered telecommunications company in Australia. So that means we have to adhere to some pretty strict compliances and regulations. There's, notably the Telco Act, which has some sections like the Telecommunications Sector Security Reforms, or the TSSR, which imposes some pretty strict obligations on us to protect our network and our facilities and to maintain appropriate supervision and control over all of our infrastructure, which is significant. Outside of legislative commitments, we understand that we're a key piece of the supply chain for our customers. We take that responsibility very seriously. I believe personally that fundamentally suppliers should be there to help you. So if by using a supplier that your cyber risk is disproportionately increased, and I feel like that's not quite right, and that supplier's not doing the thing that they should be doing for you, I think a supplier's risk profile itself, as an industry, needs to be much more accessible. We need to be able to see that. I think suppliers should be judged more publicly on those sorts of risks. I feel like if we were to do that across the board, that a rising tide would lift everybody up, and it would change that landscape a little bit. But that, speaking more personally, I guess for Superloop, we definitely spend a lot of our time and a lot of our energy making sure that we reduce our cyber risks and we reduce the cyber risks for our customers. We don't want to be there to increase their risk. We want to be there to decrease it. And as a technology company and as a young technology company, we feel like that's the right thing to be doing.
Yeah, fantastic. It's really good to hear that. And I know you do a lot of work in the platform as well. So now for one of the golden questions. So in your opinion, what would you suggest CIOs and CISOs consider from a security perspective? Is there anything obvious that we might be missing?
That's a good question. I'd have to say, CIOs and CISOs in the industry and security leaders or IT leaders definitely have their work cut out for them. I guess in large part because the interconnectedness of cloud services and SaaS services, they're growing exponentially every day. It seems like you find more and more, even when you think that's ended. There's just they keep coming. When you combine the breadth of technology that's out there with the anytime, any device, anywhere style access that everyone is sort of demanding as the baseline these days, it really creates a perfect storm for data security. One of the key challenges, I guess, is vulnerability sort of management. It's visibility and it's measurement, really. So we have plenty of great engineers. We have plenty of good system engineers, network engineers, IT professionals. That they can fix issues as they come up. But the challenge is really measuring and responding to these issues as they come up in a really consistent way. One of the key use cases we have for the UpGuard platform is to make sure that we have that uniform way of measuring and reporting those risks, and giving that constant visibility and a constant measurement for reporting those risks, internally as well as for our suppliers as well.
Yeah, great. And how about monitoring of your third-party vendors? Obviously, a company like Superloop would have a ton of vendors. How do you monitor them from a cybersecurity perspective?
I think we do pretty well, actually. But we have over 80 vendors, and from the platform we have over 80 vendors monitored in the platform. And most people sort of get a little surprised when they hear me say that we have 80 SaaS vendors. But it's true, and honestly, if you go looking and you think about what's out there, then there's way more SaaS tools that you probably don't consider a vendor, and you just consider software. But they're all working with your data in some way, shape, or form, so they pose a risk of some sort. Obviously, some aren't as big as others, but you take Slack at one end of the spectrum, and maybe something like Grammarly at the other. they're both interacting with your data, so they both do pose a risk of some sort. We make sure at Superloop that we take careful attention and we catalog all those vendors, and we measure them and how they contribute to our overall risk profile.
Can you tell us a little bit more about how you use vendor risk?
Yeah, no worries. I guess it'll come as no surprise, but before we used the UpGuard platform, we were very heavy into the spreadsheet surveys backwards and forwards. The biggest challenge that we found with the surveys and the sort of sending the spreadsheets backwards and forwards to do assessments wasn't really the writing of the questions. They were pretty straightforward. It wasn't even getting the vendors to answer them, although sometimes that's quite a lengthy process. It was really digesting the information that came back and then being able to start a meaningful dialogue with some vendors about what that means and what we wanted to get out of the assessment. In some cases, that process just to get started takes a couple of weeks, and that slows the business down. If they come to you and say, hey, Andrew, we really need to onboard this vendor, and I have to delay them by 6 or 8 weeks because I want to send a spreadsheet around, that takes a long time, and it definitely doesn't enable us to move quickly, right? So, I'm happy to say that when we brought in the UpGuard platform, we got rid of the old process almost entirely. We still do send questionnaires if we need to, so it's not like we threw the baby out with the bathwater, but, we use UpGuard as that common language platform to assess and monitor all of our vendors' cyber risks. And it is a tiered model, right? So, for example, if a customer has an UpGuard score of, say, 600 or lower, we're definitely in questionnaire territory, and we use the platform to send those questions backwards and forwards. But if a vendor comes in and let's say they've got, say, 700 as a score, and that we're sharing sensitive data with them, we'll go into the platform and we'll say, well, why aren't they at 900, for example? And we'll go look at those gaps. And then we have a discussion with them about those gaps. So, straight off the bat, instead of asking them a lot of baseline questions and figuring out what they're doing, we're asking them about gaps, having a mature conversation with them about what risks are still present, rather than, talking about the basics, which are covered off in a 700, page questionnaire. And I think, as we start seeing more and more as assessments come through, if a vendor is, say, they've got a really good score in UpGuard, so they're at 800 plus, they've got an ISO 27001 certification, and they've got a published questionnaire on the platform, our engagement with them is really short and it's really simple. It's just a straight conversation, talking about those gaps, talking about the areas that might need improvement, and then we're straight into monitoring mode as opposed to spending a lot of our time in that assessment mode. So, actually, that's one of the surprise features, I guess, of the platform that we weren't expecting when we signed up, was the concentration risk feature. So where we have 80 vendors and maybe 40 of those vendors are all using the same software, or they've got a supply chain sort of common touch point between all those vendors, which we find really interesting, and we use as part of that monitoring process for the vendors, so not just the initial assessment, but then into that monitoring process. And monitoring itself is, a really important part of the vendor management process, and it quite often gets overlooked because you spend so much of your time at the beginning of that engagement, sending those questionnaires backwards and forwards and finding out what the baseline is for a customer, or for a vendor, that you don't ever get a chance to graduate into monitoring mode. And monitoring mode, in my opinion, normally was reserved for the top end of town, and the top end of town were, have the people, they have the workforce behind that process, they can go and go through that. But I guess the feature that I like about the concentration risk piece, it means that we can be more proactive, right? We don't need to have that massive workforce behind us to be to go through and be proactive. We can let the tools do that work for us.
Awesome. Look, Andrew, it's really good to hear your insights and your thoughts today. We really appreciate you being with us. That was a really interesting session.
No problem. Anytime. Thanks for having me.
No worries. Thanks for joining us today at UpGuard Summit. Our next guest speaker is Dan Gordon, who is the Engineering Manager at Hireup. We'll be discussing attack surface and third-party risk management for startups. So kicking things off, Dan, firstly, thank you for taking the time to be with us today. Could we start by learning a bit more about your background and your role at Hireup?
Yeah, thanks, Aaron. Thanks for having me. It's a pleasure to be here. So I'm the engineering manager for SRE and security at Hireup. So those functions sit with me in Hireup. As for me personally, I've been in the industry for about 20 years, starting as a developer and really working as both a developer and a sysadmin and a DevOps person for those 20 years, ultimately joining Hireup, where I have been for just over a year now.
Sounds like you've got a load of great experience there, Dan. And could you tell us a bit more about Hireup and what they do?
Absolutely. Hireup is a disability service provider, but the model we choose to run as is as a marketplace. So we have a marketplace where people seeking support can find and search for support workers. A slight difference in our model, perhaps to others, is that our support workers are all employees of Hireup. That way we feel we can ensure quality and allow our people seeking support a really nice wide range of options when they're looking for a support worker.
Yeah, awesome. That sounds great. And what are the types of security challenges faced by a company like Hireup?
So we're not strictly a health data provider, but we are certainly health adjacent. So we collect a lot of very sensitive information, both from our people seeking support and around their particular situation. But since our support workers are employees, we're obligated to collect a lot of sensitive data about them from a legal perspective, stuff like security checks and police checks, that kind of thing. So ensuring that we collect all the data securely and store it securely is the most critical thing for us. On top of that, we run a publicly facing website on the internet, which of course has the standard set of challenges.
Yeah, sounds like you'd have a lot on your plate there. Could you share some of the ways we've helped you identify and monitor your own assets, for example, using BreachSight?
Yeah, BreachSight is a great product for us. Being a startup mode company, they were operating for about 4 years before I joined. And as you can appreciate, being a cloud native kind of company, there's lots of stuff out there that you don't necessarily know is still operating. Things get spun up and they might not get spun down and that kind of thing. And BreachSight's been really good in helping us find those things and identify them, because we can't have a good security posture unless we actually know what is out there and what have we got running. So BreachSight's been great in helping us find those things. And then it comes with a little financial benefit for us too, because once we do find those things and realize, well, we don't need to use them anymore, we can turn them off and save some money in subscriptions. So yeah, it's a great product from those two perspectives for us.
Yeah, that's awesome to hear. And how about your procurement process? Have you guys been adding security reviews to your existing process?
Absolutely. I'm very proud of the vendor provisioning or the vendor procurement process that we've got now at Hireup. Again, being cloud native, we work with a lot of software as a service companies. And there's always a tendency just to put in your credit card and sign up. But with vendor risk, we've established a process where all new vendor engagements have to go through vendor risk. So using that product, we get a great little dashboard and a scorecard on the vendor's security posture. And it just allows us to figure out what we want to do. If they come back, rated A or 900 score, then no worries, we can go ahead. If it finds some issues, we'll figure out what to do, whether that's engaging with the vendor and asking them what it's about, or perhaps even not using that vendor at all. Ongoing from the procurement process is once we've signed up and we're using a vendor risk just allows us to keep tabs on that vendor. So we get a good idea if their security posture changes in any meaningful way, if it drops or goes up. And depending on the vendor, we can reach out and figure out what change caused that, what's happening, and if we need to take any action to fix it up.
Awesome. Thanks so much for those insights. Very useful. So that brings us to a close. Dan, thanks again for spending time with us today. It's been a great discussion.
Thanks for having me, Aaron. It's been a pleasure.
No worries. Thanks.
Welcome back. UpGuard and IAG have been working together since 2016. It's been a fantastic partnership, and I can't wait to tell you a bit about it. Firstly, for folks who may not be familiar with IAG, they're the largest general insurer in Australia and New Zealand. They were founded in 1920, they've got 8 million customers, and they write $12 billion in premiums annually. They're really big. Our partnership has grown from strength to strength. We've worked together on a successful cyber insurance pilot in New Zealand. We've taken strategic investment from IAG's New Ventures Group, and we have awesome insurance initiatives taking off in the Asia Pacific region. The cyber insurance pilot has been terrific. Using our vendor risk product, IAG enabled executive visibility across their entire New Zealand customer portfolio. We've also helped IAG dive deep into customers and their own cyber risk profile, and we've provided real-time alerts to help IAG continuously monitor the portfolio. Now, I've got the pleasure of welcoming Aaron Langmaid, Principal Digital Product Manager at IAG, to talk a bit more about the partnership. Aaron, thanks for taking the time. Welcome to Summit.
Thanks for having me. From an intro perspective, I'm Aaron Langmaid. I've been with IAG for about 20 years now. And for the last 2 years, I've had the pleasure of working with the UpGuard guys and taking their capability and bleeding it through all of IAG from not only a customer perspective, from a corporation perspective as well. As per the intro, I'm the principal of digital product management, and that's within our strategy and innovation team. It doesn't exactly describe what I do. Basically, what I have been doing is I've been assisting our venture arm in commercialising UpGuard's capability within all the brands under the IAG umbrella. Basically, our partnership started out through investment, and that was a single investment, which has now moved to second and third stages. And the reason that we invested in UpGuard is because we married up on 3 key points. The first point was looking at how we could take new points of data and commercialise that for ourselves. Also, how we could look at disrupting our customer value chain and the customer journey from an insurance perspective, and also how we can identify new revenue streams and business models to take us through. So it wasn't just investing in UpGuard, and when they make money, we make money. We wanted to take their capability through and add it as a value add for all our customers and attract new customers by doing it. We are entering a second year of our partnership. The first year was really good for us because it was basically discovery. It was test and learn, and I'm going to take you through an example of what that looked like. We've just entered the second year, and basically what that is going to be scale and accelerate. So we've got a lot of good examples which we can take out of the New Zealand business. We're trying to bleed that through into our Australian business at the moment. But what it's also led to is it's led to emerging, I suppose, customer value propositions and viable products that we're starting to introduce into a new market, which is in Singapore. Mm-hmm. So basically, what the capability that UpGuard has provided us is we can start looking at our customers through different lenses. So first of all, the immediate advantage that we had was the data points that the capability brought to us. It basically started to look at our portfolio in a really different way. So what we've done for our guys internally is basically introducing them enhanced portfolio management techniques. And the reason that we've been able to do that is because there's particular data points that the UpGuard capabilities afforded us. And not only does it show us our weaknesses and how we can close it, but it also reveals to us what the opportunities look like. We have been told by UpGuard that we use their products in a really, really different way. And that's been really positive for us because the UpGuard guys have always been willing to collaborate and work out how we could utilize their capability in a different way from how a lot of their other customers had utilized it themselves. So basically, if you're an IAG customer with cyber insurance, you're monitored 24/7 via UpGuard capability. And that affords us a few things. Basically, what it's done is we get a customized dashboard, which we have put every single IAG customer in. What that gives us is an overall risk position from a cyber posture perspective. We can look at our trends over time. We can look at accumulation. We can look at our concentrations of risk, and we can go down into a segmented view. What that is helping with our product manufacturers, our key underwriting managers, is start to identify and have a different lens of what our customers look like. It's not just looking at an industry. It's not just looking at geo. It's starting to group together where there is significant cyber risks and where our customers are actually relatable. And that really changes the way that we approach them from a risk perspective.
Aaron, that is super interesting. I might ask you, what were things like before? Tell me about before UpGuard was in place.
Well, simply it was a traditional underwriting process for us. So we had particular risk mechanisms that we needed to understand. So it would be, what industry you're in, what your turnover was, where you were located. So really typical insurance questions if you went and got, house and contents, private motor, or business insurance. Now, cyber insurance, even though from a world perspective, the Australian market is absolutely in its infancy. What the UpGuard capability has led us to do is start to actually challenge our traditional underwriting process. So and this is why it's been a little bit of a long burn for us in particular markets, is we're starting to earn the right to go back to our customers and say, hey, we're actually going to start asking you different questions because we're starting to look at you in a different lens. Where we'd ask typical underwriting questions, we would get a skewed view of what their actual cyber insurance risks look like.
Because it's subjective, right?
Absolutely. And because it's what we're considering to be a new threat, we didn't have the data to go back to say, okay, well, this is what the trend over time looks like, and this is how we can actually, forecast what a risk is going to look like in the future. And what this is leading to us to do internally is we're now starting to change our underwriting question sets, which is starting to change our underwriting appetite, which means we're starting to look at where we had customers in the past or industries in the past from a segmentation perspective where we go, actually, we don't think we want to write these. We've completely changed our view on it. So actually, we do want to write these because now we've got the data to actually design a solution which is going to insulate that customer. And
so that's an interesting lens on it, in that, reading between the lines, it opens new revenue opportunities as well as risk management opportunities.
Yeah, absolutely. So
right.
if we have it at a high level from a portfolio perspective, we're identifying areas of the market that we really should be attacking. So it allows us to be very, very tactical. We've changed our product. We've given the information that we've got through, and the data that we're getting from you guys. We've actually we've updated our product to reflect what the new risk looks like. So that's it at a high level. That's what we're introducing, across our customer base. But what we can also do is we can flip it to a one-to-one customer lens. So as I said before, if you're an IAG customer, you're monitored 24/7, and what that allows us to do is we can actually start sending our customers alerts. And what we're starting to do is we're starting to use risk as a score, and that's a phrase that we've kind of coined internally. So where we get an UpGuard score from scanning a customer, we're actually translating that score into an outcome for the customer. So whether it's a new business opportunity, we'll do a scan. If they're looking good from an UpGuard perspective, they might get a discount. If not, we're then in a position to actually help them raise that score. And so where we have this alert system, if overnight one of our customers is impacted by whatever threat or whatever is happening to them in their landscape, we've actually now got the mechanisms in real time to actually go back and say, hey, this is a vulnerability for you. You probably should close it. This is how we think you can close it. If you need help, come back and see us. We can actually push you towards some bespoke assurance solutions outside of simply just having insurance with us.
Yeah, that's terrific. I mean, it means IAG is operating at a different point of the value chain, shall we say?
Absolutely.
Not just an insurer.
It's from a local perspective. There's no one else is doing this. This is absolutely a market differentiation piece for us. It's allowing us to attract the customers that we actually want and help our customers in a different way. When we start talking about that customer value chain, we're actually pushing the insurance part right to the back of the value chain. And what we've experienced through not only our intermediaries, but also our one-to-one customers is cyber insurance from an IAG perspective now just becomes a safety net, because we've got everything at the front end. We can identify what they look like. We can actually assist the customer mitigate a lot of their risks. And then, if they have a worst case scenario, there is still one of our products that sits at the back of it to capture them if they actually fall. And that's a really powerful it's a really powerful message that we take to market, whereas a lot of our competitors are actually putting a lot of their oomph after a claim happens. So they're supporting a customer after something happens. We're taking it all to the front end, so something actually, we're trying to mitigate the whole thing so it actually doesn't happen in the first place.
That's terrific. And we've been working together on that sort of pilot program in New Zealand. There's also stuff coming in the future, so we're starting to work together, and maybe you could talk a bit about that, where we're going next with it.
Yeah, so I suppose just to give you a really quick rundown on the three markets that we're looking at the moment, we've had a lot of success in integrating UpGuard capability into our New Zealand market. The reason is that they're quite a small market. They're very agile, so they can introduce, test and learn at a really fast pace. So what we've done is all the UpGuard capability that sits there at the moment is we're currently monitoring our full portfolio, and UpGuard capability is assisting us with all our new business opportunities as they come through. We're trying to replicate what that looks like in Australia, and that's when I talk about our second year of partnership. Our second year is really taking this throughout our Australian market. They're a tougher market. We've got more competitors in the space, and we've also got a lot of different channels to market. So we've got direct channels, and we've also got intermediated channels. So it's got a lot of tentacles. So that's why it's been a bit of a long burn in Australia. But that's what we're looking to achieve over the next 12 months. But what's really emerged out of this, I suppose, over the last 6 to 9 months is new opportunities in new markets. And what our guys in the Singapore market have done is they've taken the customer value proposition and the customer journey that we've designed and collaborated with you guys with, and they're introducing it into the Asian market at the moment. Now, it's going to be a different approach, but they'll utilise the UpGuard capability in much the same way. It's a digital-first market, and we don't have any insurance presence in Asia at the moment. So this is going to be all what we consider to be new customers. And so what we're doing is we're putting the UpGuard capability at the front of the customer journey. So as they're looking for cyber insurance from a business perspective, they'll be the UpGuard capability will be put up the front, and that'll actually lead to an insurance outcome out the back end. And this is where it's really good because we're using that to leverage in and out. What we're learning in Australia and New Zealand, we're handing straight over to the Singapore guys. Again, they're in a very agile, digital-first market, and what they're learning and how they're utilising your capability in a very different way, they're coming back to hopefully help us accelerate our position in the Australian market.
That's awesome. Thank you so much for sharing that, Aaron. Safe to say, I speak from all of us here at UpGuard. It's been terrific working with you guys. Fantastic working with IAG, from the investment through to the strategic initiatives that we've worked together. The partnership is going from strength to strength. Thank you for taking the time. Yeah, look, I really appreciate it. We really appreciate it. Thanks for taking the time. I think it'll be great to have more IAG folks in summits to come as well. So again, thanks a lot, Aaron. Great to chat.
Thanks for having me.
Nothing makes us prouder here at UpGuard than hearing from our customers. On behalf of the whole team, I'd like to thank Andrew Lawrence, Dan Gordon, and Aaron Langmaid for participating today. It was great hearing you share your UpGuard success stories. And that brings us to the end of today's event. Thank you for tuning in and making our first summit such a success. Based on overwhelming interests from the audience, we're already planning next quarter's event. We're sending you a quick survey about today. We would love to hear about what we can do to make this even bigger and better for you next time. We're looking forward to seeing you all soon. Take care and stay safe.